as well. And so I really enjoyed it. Like I said, we relocated up here about 9 months ago. Heard about this opportunity and thought, let me throw my hat in the ring and see if this is something that I can help out with. Professionally, I'm a CFO, and I have been for about 25 years now in finance, about 12 of that at a not-for-profit. So very familiar with not-for-profit, government financials, having done that professionally, and then also with my time on the school board. And then lastly, I would just say I'm just very passionate about education. I grew up here in Washington. Before we went to Arizona, I went through public schools here in Washington, had an amazing experience. Was very fortunate. Both my parents were in public education for most of their whole lives. So our whole family's just been an advocate for public education, and made most of my very significant relationships, friendships with mentors, all people that I met through going through public education. So I'm a big fan. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to have the experience that I had.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Greg?
Well, I served as a teacher and counselor for 40 years before retiring about 7 years ago. And the last 26 years was down here at Paulsville Middle School, Paulsville Junior High when I started. And so I think basically my education experience in those areas, as well as I've been here for 35 years in the community at Kingston. And I think that would, to me, be the icing on the top of the cake to be able to serve on the board here and help out. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Kathy?
Well, in fact, Sean's mother and I worked together in the Everett School District for about 16 or 17 years, so this is old home week for me. I was interested in joining the school board because I have a passion for education. And my journey in public education, 30 years, is a little unique. I started out as a high school graveyard custodian, worked in that position for about 2 years, then moved into a district courier position and did that for about 8 years, delivering packages to the 20 schools in Everett. And then while I was doing that, I took college courses, became expert in accounting and computer technology, office skills, etc., and moved into a clerical position, supporting 3 regional directors. The school district was divided into regions because it was so big, and supported those regional directors until I became the support person for assistant superintendent. And during that time period, I worked on the district's strategic planning committee, and that was about a year-long process to build a strategic plan in the areas of finance, communications, and the educational program. Out of the subcommittee from that planning committee came a radio show that myself, district administrator, and a parent volunteer developed. It was a once-a-month program called Making the Grade Education in Someone's County. Ran for 4 years, and it was with KSER Radio, community radio. And we covered programming of educational issues like, if you remember, you're probably not old enough to, but the I-601 and 602 and how that impacted education. And we interviewed the 1992 gubernatorial and superintendent of public instruction candidates, and then brought in a variety of innovative teachers about their classroom programs within that region. Then I moved to, also was on the local law enforcement block grant advisory committee, which took block grants from the federal government. And one of the things we did was put laptops in patrol cars so that officers could stay in the field put in the reports and not have to go back to the station. About 2001, I applied for and received the position of administrative assistant to the superintendent of Bainbridge Island School District. Worked in that capacity for almost 14 years. I supported the board. I know well the board responsibilities, what the requirements are. I also served on the District Budget Advisory Council, on the School Configuration Committee, etc. So I have a real passion for what you folks do and how it supports student education. So there you go.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Edwin?
Thank you, sir. I am a Puget Sound native. Grew up in Tulsa. Well, I didn't grow up in Tulsa. We lived here 25 years. My family came to Washington in 1847, before it was even Washington. And my great-great-grandmother started one of the first school districts in the state. I have a master's degree in education. I teach at Bates College in Tacoma. I've taught there for almost 20 years in the art science program. I'm also working with 3 different school districts right now, creating high school CTE programs at the School District Highline in Tacoma. I've taught a number of things here in the United States. Also, I've created educational programs in Africa, and we've created curriculum for them, and have a great passion for education and trying to understand where children are at, meeting that need, and taking them where they need to go, but meeting them specifically where they're at. And this school district gave that opportunity to my children who grew up here and went to school here, with some of the unique educational programs that this district has. I have one son in particular right now who's the IT manager, Virginia Mason, who had not gone through programs that he went through here in North, which were alternative education. You wouldn't be able to do that. So also, I work with the Native communities in meeting, creating programs for them, and as I said, have a great respect for cultures and trying to create curricula that meets their needs. I look forward to being part of a team because this is all, there's no one person that can do this.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, Brian?
I think Stacy's.
Oh, sorry.
Started with Greg the first time, be the first one to answer. Greg.
Yes, that is correct.
I'll make sure I- How have you encouraged teamwork, facilitating collaboration, and leveraged collective intelligence while participating in school districts previously? And what other community or volunteer activities have you been involved?
Thanks. As a guidance counselor, you always work as a team with the administrators in the building and the psychologists, and you work with the special ed people and a variety of people in here at the district level also. And so that's just kind of an ongoing thing. Like every week you meet with the team and discuss the issues and things. So like I say, there's been a lot of those meetings. And then of course we do the planning for scheduling and figuring out all the sectioning every spring, creating the schedule for the next following year. And then you also have all kinds of meetings and committees and things after school. And I've been in here many times. We had one fun thing. It was a year-round school committee where we studied for about 6 months different aspects of year-round schooling, and would that be something that the district would want to get into? So just tons of things you do, just part of the job. So, as far as outside school, I live right behind us here, Meredith Heights, and it was incorporated in 2002. I moved in 2003, and the way it works is that the builder turns it over to the workers or to the owners after so many have been sold. Anyway, so in 2006, I started doing the books and everything on QuickBooks, and have been doing that ever since. So it keeps busy. Thanks.
Encourage teamwork. When I went to Bailey Island School District, I was part of the administrative team, and we would have every year administrative retreats. And we would work in teams to address the issues that we were looking into the future for. And I worked with principals and other administrators, and we would collaborate in small groups and come up with solutions for whatever task was given to us. So you had to work cooperatively, very used to working in teams. Going back in my life, when I became a courier for Everett School District, I was the first woman in the maintenance department. And you had to work as a team, and I had to convince them that it was okay to have a woman in the maintenance department, and it worked out beautifully. We became a good team together. And then volunteer work all through my life. I've worked in classrooms. I was a reading buddy, a math buddy over several years when my daughter was in elementary school. So I'm really used to working in teams. And I think that's really important for the work that you have ahead of you this coming year. So.
As I was looking at this, I was thinking of a number of things. I think one of the more challenging programs that I worked on in this regard was creating curriculum and then actually running a leadership development program for fire officers in the Lagos area. Extremely dysfunctional department. Lack of leadership, lack of vision, lack of direction, lack of understanding of what was expected. And so I created a curriculum for them to help them understand what their role was, what their responsibility was to the community. It was a very, very difficult project. And it took a while to do it. As far as other community activities, I worked as a volunteer firefighter medic for many, many years, served in Paulsville for 15 years. And in that regard, helped develop a regional training team. And also, I served as the homeowner president in our neighborhood. I've done that for 10 years, which, as you know, can be challenging. They haven't burnt me at the stake yet, so I think I'm doing all right with that.
So as far as teamwork goes, I would start by saying my time on the school board was one of the best examples. Although we had 2 and 4 year terms, we had several individuals either roll off or move out of district or resign, and so we had kind of this continuous turnover that you don't necessarily like to have, because then you have that learning curve of having to get to know people and how they work best and how you work with them. But we did that, and we did that, I would say, very well, given all the tasks that came up during the time that we were there. And that was, by far the biggest challenge. We had to do some redistricting, which if you've ever done that before, like that makes zero people happy in the room. I mean, there's no way to do it, but we skated through it and got the best outcome that we could. In addition to that, we did a lot of work passing bonds, other initiatives, local initiatives to help with the funding for the schools. Outside of the school district stuff, I'm a volunteer. I'm actually the vice chair for Arizona Swimming, a position I was elected to before we moved up here. So still serving out my time there. Been involved with youth swimming. Both my girls swim, so that's what kind of pulls us all in one time or another. But that's what pulled me into that. Served on a number of boards for various youth sports through Little League and swimming, gymnastics, and some other events. And then had the opportunity to serve as the Booster Club president for our high school swim team in Arizona for 4 years. And so that was a booster club that had just got off the ground. I started the second year of the club. And so there was a lot of work to be done and a lot of heavy lifting still to do. And the challenge in roles like that is you typically get volunteers in for the time their kid is there. And then they're gone. So just about the time they figure out what's going on, their kid's a senior and they move on, or their kid decides they're not swimming and you lose the volunteers. So it required a lot of thoughtful communication, teamwork, working well together, and really just kind of, everybody wearing multiple hats, focused on the outcome of the kids.
Well, it's my turn to ask a question. I'm Beverly Guthrie, and my first question will go to Kathy. So the question is, what is your view on the importance and impact of public education, both philosophically and locally? And how would that relate to your role as a school board member in North Kitsap?
Yes. Well, I believe that public education is the foundation for our society. I truly believe that. The education we give to our children allows them to be successful, and as they grow into adults, they become contributing folks to our society, and we build on that. As far as being a school board member, I have seen it from the inside. I know how hard you folks work. Even though you're elected, you're volunteers, and you put in countless hours to help support the school district within which you work. There can be ups and downs. The focus of a school board is to oversee policies, financial stability of the school district, to listen to the community and try and reflect in the things that they do, what the community wants. So my passion for wanting to become a school board member is to help with that effort. And I will say that I believe that capital facilities are an important aspect of any school district. A comfortable, well-maintained environment for kids and teachers to work in. So there you go.
Thank you. Edward?
Can I read a response to your questions? I've taught in countries where primary education comes at a great sacrifice to families. Public schools in the United States, in large, ensure equal access to education, regardless of economic status, race, or ethnicity. A significant portion of the community's identity rests in the value it places on educating its children, and in extension, how well public institutions fulfill that mandate. As a reflection of the community, schools must be accountable and their leadership accessible. I believe school boards, in addition to their regulatory and fiduciary responsibilities, must view their service as a stewardship of public trust.
Thank you. John?
Sure. So, yeah, I would say education is, really one of the most important things that we can give the students in our community. I mentioned in my intro, I'm very passionate about it. I attend public schools, my whole career. My parents were in public schools, so it's been something that we've just been extremely passionate about, fortunate. I went to the schools that I went to were amazing. Everett School District, right, was amazing.
Yeah.
Washington schools in general are amazing. And I have, fortunately, maybe unfortunately, the ability to contrast that against Arizona. And so it gave me, as my kids were going through school, and they had great experience, but it gave me a good opportunity to really reflect on how fortunate I was to have the opportunity I did in Washington. And that's through making relationships with teachers, with staff, with coaches. All of our first friends are people we typically meet in school, and those relationships all continue. And to this day, I still have the interactions with many of those people. In fact, as we were relocating up here, I came up to check out the area, went over to Everett, and ran into my old calculus teacher, Dick Kernett, you probably know. Yeah, and just rehashing the old memories and really talking to him about what an impact it made on my life, was really well received by him. In terms of how my passion relates to what we would do here for the school district, we're in charge of hiring the superintendent and evaluating the superintendent, and that has a direct impact on not only the staff, the curriculum, but also most importantly the kids who go through the district. And so I would help with that process, and I have some good experience doing that. We're in charge of approving policies. So again, policies need to be applicable to all the students, but that is something that I've done and passionate about, and would look forward to doing. The other piece is that we need to be advocates for the community, and having been in this community for only 9 months, I tell you, it's been so welcoming and just really enjoyable to be a part of. And we've seen, a number of opportunities for our kids here in North Kitsap, here in Washington, that they didn't have elsewhere. And so, it's very encouraging, something I definitely want to be a part of.
Thank you. Great.
Well, if you want to know how important schools are, just think about a few years ago, think about COVID, where kids couldn't go to school, and what happened. I mean, we're still recovering, and it's not just the education, which is obviously the key thing, but it's just a community hub, and what you do, and it's like all the sporting events, and the band programs, the drama programs, and all the things you do that brings the community together. I remember years ago, because we're coming up to Viking Fest, and years ago we had the NKA part of it, had a pie booth on a Viking Fest, and we got the pies made by this man who run the Odin Inn. She made the pies there. The kids made the pies in the high school group. She got the rhubarb out of her own garden down there. But it was just so much fun to do that kind of stuff and meet the community down there and have the kids take part. And it's just, that's the kind of thing that you need. If you don't have that, you're not a community. That's it, bottom line. So it's a key.
Thank you. I'm Bree Martinez, and I'll be asking the next question. So I'm going to start with you, Edward, and this is kind of a twofold question. The board's major function is setting policies that affect every aspect of our district, including student learning. How would you approach setting policies that are equitable for all students and staff? And how would you give students voice, especially in typically underserved populations, a space to thrive and be heard?
You don't ask easy questions, do you? First off, I think you have to identify your stakeholders. Who has a voice at the table and who needs to have a voice at the table? And then what can they offer to the process? Because this is a community organization. It's accountable to the community, unless there's community input. unless the administrators and the staff have a voice. And the students themselves have a voice. It's not serving that community. And when you talk about underserved communities, I've worked in, as I said, I've worked in Native communities where they were burdened with these one-size-fits-all policies that we think back on the boarding schools that the natives had, where they tried to jam them into this, take a square peg and jam it into a round hole with force. And what that did to the Native communities, we're still paying for that. And the work that I have done has so much has been trying to listen to what people have to say. What are they really saying, and what we need to hear from them in creating policies. There has to be accountability at every level.
Thank you. Sean?
I think you made a great point. I mean, you really need to have all of the views and all of the perspectives of the stakeholders in consideration when you're looking at policies, right? And I think it starts with hiring a superintendent and making sure that that person's on board with the same ideas. But I think 5 diverse opinions in a room is a lot better than 1 echo chamber. And so, to the extent that you can include stakeholders, people who have vested interest in the outcomes in the conversations that you're doing, I think you'll be much more successful. Because the board, corporation, anybody can create policies, but the staff has to execute on the policies. And if the staff is not skilled enough, or motivated, or encouraged, or rewarded enough to do that, then you can have the most beautiful policies in the world, but your outcomes aren't going to be great or substantial. And so I think it starts with making sure that you have the right superintendent, the superintendent has the right team, everybody has the right resources, and that you're gathering opinions from everybody in the community.
Thank you. Greg?
What they've said is totally right. I think in addition, 3 things are important, essential. You've got to have great communication. Luckily, you do that pretty easily nowadays. You've got to have transparency. That's a big one. Okay. And second, you've got to keep your your opinions and thoughts on hold and consider other points of view that you may not have considered. Because there's always something out there maybe that you don't know about that's going to help a lot better than you anticipate yourself. So I think those are 3 key things.
Thank you. And Kathy?
Well, I've come at policies from having reviewed and updated them for the board of directors. So I see it in different levels. The first level is legislation that comes down in the form of RCWs that guides all of the basic principles and policies that school districts operate under. And every year they have new legislation, and every year you have to kind of make sure that the policies you have in place are updated to meet those RCWs. So that's at that level. Then if you're talking about school policies, individual school policies, high schools, elementaries, middle schools, they can set their student policies, how students conduct themselves within the school. Now, the general policies that come down are the ones that tell you about discipline and that kind of thing. But the school policies can be set by school staff as to how do you conduct yourself while you're in school, what parent volunteerism is. So that's another level. And then finally, you can have input from the community for those school policies, the individual school policies. You folks review the policies that come to you when there's RCWs to update those policies. And community can have input, but aren't it those legislators, they set the RCWs that we have to follow. So that's how I see policies.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then I will be asking the final question this evening. I'm going to start again with Sean or back around. So this question is, in your opinion, What are North Kitsap School District's major strengths and weaknesses? And what role does the school board have in affecting those areas and creating a supportive, safe, and caring space to work and learn?
I think I have a unique opportunity and a unique perspective because I'm just coming right from Arizona and I have one child who went through Arizona schools and another who's here at North Kitsap. And so I would say, number one, right out of the gate, the biggest strength we have here is community. And, you know, I think there are good people in education throughout. We had amazing teachers in Arizona, but really the district and even the teachers were very much silent in what they were able to do. There was not a lot of collaboration. There was not a lot of sharing of information. It was similar kind of to the college experience where you show up for one class, you get a professor, you go to another class, you get a professor. They have no idea who each other are. They don't work together. They don't talk about, hey, this student has some needs. So are you seeing this? Is there a way you can help? And we have 100% seen that happen here. And, you know, just the collaboration across the schools, across the districts, with staff, not just the teachers, but the coaches, the administrators. It's been night and day. So I would say absolutely that's definitely the biggest strength that's impacted our family. As far as weaknesses, I think, you know, number one, all districts are challenged with resources, right? And it's money is what comes to mind first, but also time. And, you know, I think that's always the challenge, no matter what district you're in. How are we going to allocate our money? How are we going to allocate our time? And what is the best impact for the students? You know, what's going to help each student? Every district that I've been involved with, not only serving on the board, but, you know, at various retreats on other projects, will come to you and say, yeah, it's the same thing. Like, how do you decide where you're going to spend your money and what the biggest bang for the buck is? And I think that's a challenge. I think that's a challenge for every organization. And, you know, I think that's a challenge facing North Kitsap right now. You know, how would I help out with that? I happen to do this for a living. I balance budgets, working in nonprofits, you know, really learn. I've been in for-profit and not-for-profit, and it's really kind of one is fed the other. So the for-profit side of me knows, you know, that you got to drive towards that bottom line, but the not-for-profit side of me knows that you've got to really stretch that dollar. And what are the ways to maximize the impact that you're getting on that dollar? You know, it's not, you know, test scores are important. They're not the only important thing, right? Like there's a number of metrics that we're going to measure outcomes by. And that may be one of them. That's not the only one. So I think it's understanding what all of those are, putting a plan together to really get to, you know, what those goals are as far as a strategic plan, and then being able to execute on it.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Well, this is a beautiful area, and people want to live here. I'll tell you that. Just building around here. The people are the key, and it's not just the people who work for the district, but it's the community. And there have been some highs and lows in the past, but for the most part, the community has been real supportive of the schools. I know we had trouble with this recent bond, but still, people do support the schools, and they're there for it. They really are. That's not true everywhere. I've been in school districts where you don't have any support, and you can't get much of them, and it's just not a good place to be. So I think looking forward, even though there are challenges, you know, with the enrollment and the bond issues and things, I think the district's in a real good place. It really is going forward.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
Positives. I went to your website, which is a robust website. People who want to know information, all they have to do is go there. Very easy to navigate. You developed a strategic plan, which I briefly reviewed in 2019, and wondering when that's going to be reviewed and updated, if it is. But that's a positive thing. Very, very good goals in that strategic plan. Your capital projects is laid out so that people can be aware of what needs to happen in those buildings, the kind of improvements that need to happen. Went through that. That's a positive. You do have supportive schools, families support their schools. A negative might be better information coming out about a capital bond, so folks can understand what the needs of those facilities are. I don't know if that would involve tours of schools to see what needs to be repaired, that kind of thing. That's what they did on Bainbridge. They brought folks around and showed them what needed to be replaced. And communication. One of the most difficult things for any school district to do, I know we experienced that on Bainbridge Island, sometimes in Everett, is a clear message to community. And sometimes that's the community's fault, not really accessing the information that's available to them. Sometimes that's the district not having enough staff or being aggressive enough in their communication. So that might be a little weakness. But overall, I was really impressed and have been over the years as I've dipped in to watch the budget. Enrollment is another big issue. But you can work on that. All of the school districts are experiencing enrollment drops. So, boy, I would just really love to help you folks, having been on the inside and understanding those kinds of issues, and then really propping up all the positives that are in the school district.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Edward?
Well, a couple things. First off, where's the district at right now? You have a budget of roughly 106 million, 5,300 students, roughly, 653 full-time equivalents. You have 23 million in your capital fund, 14 schools. You've got a lot of responsibility for a small district. You got some financial pushback from the voters in the last election, but there's a lot of what we call blue sky capital, and that is that North Kitsap has traditionally thought outside the box when it came to education. And my son, as I told you earlier, is really a product of that. And I hope that whatever happens, whoever is chosen for the board, and the board will continue to think outside the box to meet the students' needs. The board is really the face of the community, and they're the ones who are the most accountable to the community, and they're the ones that have the stewardship, the fiduciary responsibility, but also the stewardship to meet the needs of the community. This is a great responsibility, and I think you all understand that. There are some great assets you guys have, that the board has and the district has, and I'm grateful for what this district has done, and I would really like to be a part of it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that concludes our questions. So before we go any further, I want to thank you very much, one, for taking the time to come speak with us. It was awesome getting to meet each of you. 4 outstanding candidates. I mean, this, if we want to talk about strengths of the weaknesses, having these quality candidates for school boards, I think we're doing something right within our community. So appreciate that. Regardless of what happens, I really hope that you choose some way to stay involved in the school district, whether that's through volunteering through schools or serving on one of our committees, or considering a school board position at a later date. So look forward to seeing all of your faces here coming up soon. So again, thank you for your time. At this time, the board is going to enter into executive session for RCW 4230110H to evaluate the qualifications of a candidate for appointment to elective service. The board will return at 6:05 p.m. Thank you.
goes down and you pay less of that burden, so.
Okay, the board will remain in executive session until 6:15. Thank you.
A lot of good options is a good problem to have.
That's
You know,
right.
like that's,
It was really. Thank you all for applying and for doing this. It's really appreciated.
Before you go back into session, can I just speak? We've come up with a plan. Rotate every other month between all. of us.
I say you get that legislation.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
All right, the time is 6:15. The board is back in session. So the next item on the agenda is appointment of Director District Number 1. I motion to appoint Edward Wright as Director District Number 1.
I'll second.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Are there any comments?
I just want to thank all four of you for coming forward and applying. I've been in that situation myself, and I just really appreciate it and really look forward to seeing all of you and so many opportunities in our district to do all the skills that would really benefit our kids, our staff, our community. So thank you so much. We're just so grateful to have you for
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'd like to say too that I was a little leery about who was going to come and apply and volunteer for this position after the year we've had. Because I kind of wondered sometimes what I did. But I have to tell you, all four of you are just wonderful. I mean, we really had a hard time figuring out where to go. So
That's our
please-
job.
Yeah.
We went.
So please stay with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I will second, third what the rest of the board has said, that, taking the time to, I know lots of times we think about getting involved, we think about doing these things, but to actually do it and put your name in the hat is just, and again, you all are exceptional candidates and just such a huge value to our community. So when we say, just as another community member, I really do hope that you stay involved and that we, long ago, that down the road that you guys are, more of you were up here serving on the board, doing different roles in our community. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
For your work.
So, okay, we're gonna, sorry, just a couple other procedural things. So at this time, I'm hearing no more comments. Again, the motion is to appoint Edward Wright as the Director District Number 1. At this time, we will conduct a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 And yes, so the motion passes 4-0. Opposed? No. Again, the vote is 4-0 to appoint Edward Wright as Director of District Number 1. So at this time, the time is 6:18 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
likewise.
Good job.